We followed closely to the opening title sequence convention by having our first title come up as our production company, Pulverized Pictures. We think this is a great idea for a horror movie production company because it is illiterate and also the words pulverized suggest death and gore. In this way we are similar to the other successful horror producers such as Possessed Pictures that produce Sinister or Midnight Entertainment that help produce Scream 4.
Our title is presented in a relevant font. We feel that this is appropriate because it looks like it has been splattered with blood and therefore has scary connotations. We took inspiration from titles such as Zombie Driftwood and Silent House. The title animation makes the title flitter and flinch, again suggesting fear, which is what our leading character is about to experience. The title itself is clear because it suggests violence and chains and classic icons of horror, such as ghosts, wrestling and chains.
The opening establishing shot warns the audience things may not go as well as is shot through a dead tree, and the street lamp symbolises it is night. The street lamp being, of course, a classic icon of horror, most famously to market the original Exorcist, but more recently used in the opening of Ills.
We chose to set our horror movie in a typical urban setting, suggesting to the audience that this could happen to them. This is reinforced by our two victims sitting down watching television like our audience is doing. This infers that it could happen to them. The Ring and several of the Scream movies open this way.
Horror occurring in safe places also conforms to classic convention, a theory by Wes Craven: bad things happen in good places. Halloween began the trend in the 70s, echoing society's fear that horror was all around society after the Vietnam War ended in defeat for America. Craven says, after Vietnam, the York-Wayne myth fell apart. We feel that paranoia in society is still an issue today, with homegrown terrorism being a big issue in society.
Our victim, playing on his phone, is also symbolic and a postmodern twist on the classic icon of horror. The phone, featuring heavily throughout this history of the genre, from the original When a Stranger Calls of the 70s, to the first Scream in the 90s, right up to the use of phones and in Paranormal Activity 4, where Holly calls her boyfriend to find out he is dead. Phones are also, of course, a big part of our target audience lives, again helping with the audience to identify the characters.
We used our titles on a black background to prolong the build-up of our suspense and create tension for the audience, a technique also used in contemporary horror such as Halloween and The Cabin in the Woods. Conventionally, this technique also helps cover up any slight continuity errors and convey a sense of the passage of time.
We consciously tried to use a variety of shots to keep our audience interested and engaged. Again, in terms of classic horror convention, this represents conformity. This high-angle shot typically suggests our victim is vulnerable. Our next sequence deliberately starts with a close-up on the phone and an uncomfortable and unusual shot that contrasts with the previous high-angle shot.
Our mise-en-scène was carefully constructed again to show a typical loving family home. In this shot you can see that the classic portrait of a harmonious family. Hannah is wearing a SpongeBob t-shirt, classically associated with innocence and children. This makes the forthcoming horror even more unexpected and shocking. The portrait of the family also reinforces the fact that any parents are missing or absent, another Craven theory that absence of authority often causes the problem in the horror.
We filmed our horror in three main locations: the lounge, kitchen and garage. The garage is a perfect choice because it is full of tools and potential weapons reminiscent of the garage in Texas Chainsaw 3D 2013, or the mise-en-scène in Hostel Part 2. The kitchen is also a classic scene of carnage throughout the genre, from Amityville in the 70s, to Scream in the 90s, to Paranormal Activity 4 in 2012.
The iconic fridge sequence is classically timed for the audience to be expecting something when the door closes, paying homage to the opening in The Ring. This is playing with the audience's expectations and serves to increase the tension. When the face then does appear, there is almost an extra scare.
Our final shot again conforms to classic horror, ending in a dead bleeding girl with a big symbolic gesture of her dropping the torch. Again we used an unusual shot by having the camera on the floor and the focus being on the open hand. Overall, our movie conforms quite rigidly with classic slasher horror theory and convention. What we do challenge with our sequence, however, is the current market saturation of paranormal horror. In that way we hope to develop the horror genre by reviving 70s style slasher full of postmodern icons.